At 56, Jennifer Aniston, America's sweetheart, the golden girl of 2000 sitcoms, dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. It wasn't a headline, it wasn't a tabloid leak, and it wasn't whispered through anonymous sources close to the star. It was Jennifer herself, speaking clearly, directly, and without a trace of bitterness. He was the love of my life. No build-up, no context, just raw truth. Fans froze. Was she finally talking about him? The man whose name has followed her through every red carpet, every interview, every tabloid headline for the last 2 decades? Brad Pitt. But it wasn't just what she said. It was when she said it. Because for years, Jennifer Aniston stayed silent. Through the cheating rumors, through the Brangelina headlines, through the stories about how she didn't want kids, she stayed poised, polished, unshakable. Until now. Now she's talking. About her childhood trauma, her toxic relationship with her mother, the truth about why her marriages failed, and her struggle to have children. And in the middle of all that pain, one name still sits quietly at the center of it all. So what finally made Jennifer speak up after all this time? And what did she really mean when she called him the love of her life? To understand that, we need to go all the way back to where the wounds first began. Before the fame, before Friends, before the world fell in love with Rachel Green. Jennifer Aniston was a little girl growing up in a home that felt more like a war zone than a sanctuary. She was born in Sherman Oaks, California, the daughter of 2 actors, John Aniston and Nancy Dow. But despite the Hollywood roots, there was nothing glamorous about her early years. When she was just 9, her parents divorced. Her father disappeared from her life without warning. One day he was there, the next he was gone. But the real damage wasn't his absence. It was her mother's presence. Nancy Dow was beautiful, sharp, and impossibly critical. According to Jennifer, her mother obsessed over appearances and was relentless in her judgment. She would tell Jennifer to put on makeup, or that she needed to take better care of herself. Words that might sound small until you hear them every day from the one person who's supposed to build you up. The damage ran deep. In her 20s, Jennifer would describe her childhood as emotionally abusive, and in 1996, everything snapped. Nancy appeared on a tabloid TV show spilling personal stories about her daughter's life. Then she went even further, publishing a memoir titled From Mother and Daughter to Friends. Jennifer cut her off. For 15 years, they didn't speak. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public, and it added fuel to a fire Jennifer had been trying to smother since childhood. The feeling that she would never be enough. Not for her mom, not for her dad, not for anyone. It's the kind of emotional baggage that doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under designer gowns and magazine covers. And one day, it comes back. Usually in the form of heartbreak. That fractured foundation would follow her everywhere. From her early days in acting, to her high-profile marriages, to her battle with self-worth. But before those struggles would define her story, Jennifer Aniston did something remarkable. She turned all that pain into a dream. Because just a few years later, that same little girl, rejected and ridiculed, would take the first steps toward becoming the most beloved woman on television. Long before she was raking in $1 million per episode, Jennifer Aniston was working the phones as a telemarketer, riding around New York as a bike messenger, and waitressing just to survive. Acting was always the dream, but for a while, it looked more like a cruel joke. Her early career was a parade of failure. She starred in 4 failed TV pilots back-to-back. Her first big movie role? A low-budget horror flick called Leprechaun, which critics, and even Jennifer herself, later called one of the worst films ever made. She was humiliated, broke, depressed, and she was about to quit. Then, one night at a gas station in Los Angeles, she ran into Warren Littlefield, the head of NBC Entertainment. She broke down crying and told him she was done. He told her not to give up. Months later, he called with a role. Friends. It wasn't even supposed to be hers. She auditioned for Monica, but producers saw something in her that they didn't expect, an effortless vulnerability. They gave her Rachel instead. And just like that, everything changed. Friends became a cultural phenomenon. Jennifer became the face of a generation. Magazine covers, award shows, fashion trends, hairstyles named after her character. The world couldn't get enough. But beneath the glamour, Jennifer never forgot how close she came to giving up. How many times she'd been told she wasn't good enough? How her own mother once told her she'd never make it in Hollywood. That underdog energy never left her. It kept her humble. It made her relatable. And it made her someone people didn't just admire. They rooted for her. But that level of fame comes with a cost. Because now, the whole world was watching. Not just her career, but her relationships, her heartbreaks, her decisions, her body. And just as she was reaching the highest high of her career, she was about to fall in love with someone who would bring her even higher, and eventually break her completely. It started like any other Hollywood romance. Two beautiful people, both newly single, introduced by their agents. But what followed between Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt was more than just a celebrity love story. It was the closest thing Hollywood had to royalty. Their first date was quiet and simple. No red carpets, no flashbulbs, just two people clicking instantly. And while the public didn't know it yet, Jennifer had just stepped into what would become the most talked-about relationship of the decade. They kept things low-key at first. Then, in September 1999, they made their red carpet debut at the Emmy Awards. By the end of the year, Brad had proposed during a Sting concert. The ring? A custom-designed diamond and platinum masterpiece that took 7 months to make. The wedding followed in July 2000. A $1 million Malibu affair with fireworks, live music, and 200 A-list guests. Jennifer's vows included a promise to always make Brad his favorite banana milkshake. Brad promised to split the difference on the thermostat. They weren't just glamorous. They were goofy, real, relatable. And the public couldn't get enough. They vacationed in the Seychelles, bought a $13 million home in Beverly Hills, even appeared on Friends, where Brad hilariously played a character who hated Rachel Green. But what made their love story feel different was how much Brad gushed about her. In interviews, he called her the love of my life, my angel, and the woman of my dreams. He spoke like a man who had found his forever. And Jennifer? She was glowing. Together, they co-founded Plan B Entertainment. They were building not just a home, but a future, a legacy. They talked about kids. They dreamed about slowing down to raise a family. On paper, it was perfect. But fairy tales, especially in Hollywood, don't always last. Behind the scenes, things were shifting. Brad was diving deeper into method acting and intense film roles. Jennifer was wrapping up Friends and dreaming of family life. They were evolving, but not always in the same direction. Still, no one saw it coming when they announced their separation in early 2005. The golden couple was over. When Jennifer and Brad announced their separation in early 2005, they tried to make it sound civil. No cheating, no bad blood, just two people parting ways with deep love and respect. But the headlines told a different story. Just weeks after the split, photos surfaced that set the entire tabloid world on fire. Brad Pitt, playing on a beach in Kenya with Angelina Jolie and her son, Maddox. The setting was intimate. The timing was undeniable. Brad and Angelina had just finished filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, a movie about a married couple hiding double lives as spies, and the chemistry on screen had been impossible to ignore. To the public, it wasn't just a breakup, it was a betrayal. Brad moved on fast, too fast, and Jennifer was left to watch it unfold in real time, splashed across every newsstand and TV screen. The media turned the story into a spectacle. Angelina was painted as the homewrecker, Brad, the runaway husband, and Jennifer, the heartbroken, discarded wife. She became a symbol of every woman who'd ever been blindsided, beautiful, successful, yet still left behind. But the real pain went deeper than gossip. Jen had been blamed for the split. Rumors spread that she didn't want kids, that she was too focused on her career, that Brad had no choice but to move on. But that wasn't true. "I've never in my life said I didn't want to have children," she said in an interview. Still, the narrative stuck. The world had decided Jennifer was too ambitious, too independent, too something. And then came the interview that changed everything. Angelina casually mentioned that she and Brad fell in love while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, before the divorce was even finalized. Jennifer never reacted publicly, but her silence was louder than words. In private, she leaned on therapy, yoga, and her inner circle, including Courtney Cox, who stayed fiercely loyal. She tried to maintain her grace, but behind the scenes, she was unraveling. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was how public it all was, how everyone felt entitled to pick apart her pain, and how every magazine headline kept dragging her name into someone else's love story. But Jennifer didn't lash out. She chose dignity, even if it meant carrying that heartbreak for years. After Brad, the world watched Jennifer Aniston's every move with a microscope. Every guy she was seen with, every handshake, every smile, suddenly became a headline. But real love? That was harder to find. In 2008, she began dating musician John Mayer. It seemed promising at first. He called their relationship more than just a fling. But during a vacation in Mexico, Jennifer found out he had been unfaithful. It was like déjà vu. Another heartbreak, just more private this time. John apologized. Jennifer walked away. She kept things quiet after that. But in 2011, something shifted. She met actor and screenwriter Justin Theroux. At first, it was cautious. Then it became serious. They bought a $22 million home in Bel Air, moved in together, and 4 years later, they got married in a surprise ceremony. For a while, it seemed like Jen had finally found a new kind of love. One that wasn't plastered across magazine covers, one that was hers. But even that didn't last. In 2017, they quietly announced their split. No drama, no scandals, just another ending. Over time, Jennifer developed a new relationship with herself. She focused on her career, producing and starring in the morning show, winning awards and earning critical acclaim. She leaned on friendships that had stood the test of time, like her bond with Courtney Cox. But something lingered. No matter how far she moved forward, the public couldn't stop looking back. To Brad. Every award show reunion, every photo, every offhand comment reignited speculation. Was there still something there? Jennifer kept it neutral, polite but guarded, because if her history had taught her anything, it was this. The world loves a love story, especially the one they never got closure on. And yet, closure, or something close to it, was coming. For decades, Jennifer Aniston's body was public property. Not literally, but in the eyes of the tabloids, the gossip blogs, and even her fans, it might as well have been. Every time she wore a loose shirt or put on a few pounds, the pregnancy rumors would start. Headlines screamed, "Jen finally pregnant," as if her value depended on it. But behind those fabricated stories was a much deeper, much more painful truth. Jennifer was trying. She wasn't ignoring motherhood. She wasn't putting career first. She was doing everything she could to become a mom. In her 30s and 40s, she underwent IVF, She drank Chinese fertility teas. She endured rounds of hormone treatments. All of it quietly, privately. While the world accused her of being too selfish to have a child. The worst part? Nobody asked her. They just assumed. In 2016, Jennifer reached her breaking point. She published a powerful essay in the Huffington Post, slamming the media for the way it objectified and dehumanized women. For the record, she wrote, "I am not pregnant. What I am is fed up." Still, the rumors didn't stop. Finally, in 2022, she opened up in an interview with Allure. For the first time, she admitted what she'd kept private for so long. She had tried everything, but it didn't work, and now it was too late. She said if someone had told her to freeze her eggs in her 20s, she might have had a different story. But no one did, and now she had made peace with it. It wasn't easy, but in speaking the truth, Jennifer took back the narrative. She made it clear. She didn't fail. She wasn't broken. She simply walked a different path, one that society didn't always understand. And in doing so, she freed not just herself, but so many women who had been judged by the same impossible standard. Still, even with that peace, there was one final thread left hanging. The one thing Jennifer Aniston had never said, until now. It wasn't meant to be a headline, no dramatic setup, no exclusive cover story, just a quiet moment in an interview. Jennifer Aniston, now 56, reflecting on love, life, and everything in between. And then she said it. "He was the love of my life." No one had to ask who he was. The world already knew. It was Brad. After everything, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the rumors, the silence, Jennifer had finally said what so many had always suspected. But it wasn't said with bitterness. There was no edge in her voice, just honesty, clarity, and maybe even a little peace. It wasn't a declaration of regret. It wasn't a plea for reconciliation. It was something more powerful, a woman looking back and finally telling the truth, without needing to rewrite the story. Because here's the thing about first loves. Even when they end, they don't always leave. They become part of you, part of how you see the world, how you love others, how you survive loss. And Brad? He was that for her. They may never get back together. They may never rekindle what they had. But the respect, the affection, the shared history, it never disappeared. And over the years, that warmth has returned in quiet ways. A backstage laugh at the SAG Awards, a soft touch on the wrist, a smirk during a virtual table read. Moments that don't scream romance, but whisper, "I remember." When asked recently if she would ever marry again, Jennifer said she had no interest. But she admitted something else, something far more revealing. "There are moments when I want to come home and just fall into someone's arms and say, 'That was a tough day.'" That longing, that vulnerability, it hit different. Because this wasn't the Hollywood version of love. This was real, unfiltered, grown-up love. Love that's been through the fire and come out wiser.